All right, so for part 3, this is where you use the instrument to analyze how you did in part 2 of the lab. So the serial dilutions you set up, we're going to measure them on the spectrophotometer and see what reading you get from that. So with the spectrophotometer, you always have to let it warm up before getting your readings, and you always have to blank it before you get your readings. So just like you would not want to get on a scale that was already reading 20 pounds heavier or 20 pounds lighter, you want to zero out that scale. You want to do the same thing with your spectrophotometer. And that really goes for most any scientific equipment. We often always have a control or a blank that we want to use to zero out that instrument. Your blank is actually going to be your test tube 1. So of course I left mine over here. Or sorry, it's going to be your 1 with just water in it. So it's going to be your 1 with just, again, your test tube with just water in it. So that's going to be tube number 4. So you don't add anything to tube number 4. So test tube 1 again had dye in it. Test tube 4 didn't have anything in it. I think in the last video I was saying add it all the way across. That was wrong. Just add it to these first 2. So this one's going to end up just being water. That ends up being your blank. So if that had water in there, I would put that in there. You're going to work with the instructor on setting this up. They're going to have it set to the right setting for you. But you put your blank in there, and then you press the 0 button over here. And you notice it says blah. Blah means blank. It's blanking out the sample and zeroing it to water. Because again, that's what you have everything diluted into is water. So you want to use water as your blank. Once that's ready, it's probably going to flash a bit here for me. Oh, there it goes. Once that's ready, you can put in each of your 3 test tubes here. That should have red food coloring in it, and it'll give you some value. That's going to be your absorbance value. So that's the number that you read and record on your handout. So again, your handout covers details of a bit of details about how the spectrophotometer works, the absorption spectrum, what wavelength values you would use for each of those. I'll talk some of that in the intro. So if you still have questions on that, make sure that you talk to your instructor about that. Make sure you understand why you use a certain color versus another color. Again, look at that wavelength table and the wavelength wheel. And as mentioned in the intro, make sure you realize that the color that's being transmitted is not the color that's being absorbed. So, and there's certain colors that are absorbed that are opposite of the color that is transmitted back to you and that you see. So for example, if you have something that appears to be green, it's not because it absorbs green light, it's because it transmits it back. Something that's green is actually going to absorb red wavelengths of light. So make sure you understand that. Again, 3 values from this is going to tell us how well you did. There's a couple questions with that in your answer sheet. Make sure you answer those.